Hello, and welcome back to Working Out the Kinks, the podcast. And today I am here with my friend Karelle, and Karelle's going to introduce herself. So please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Karelle Piercy. I am a doula. I currently work with Nola Nesting in New Orleans, and I do birth work. I'm a birth doula as well as a postpartum doula, and I teach childbirth education classes. But my favorite service I provide is placenta encapsulation.
Perfect. So that's where we're going to start all these questions, which my first question is, what is placenta encapsulation?
So placenta encapsulation is when I dehydrate the placenta and crush it up and put it into capsules for the laboring woman or the woman who gave birth to ingest.
Oh, that's pretty straight to the point. I love it.
I can elaborate more.
Oh, please do. I just want to get everything out there just so people can understand exactly what is it that we're trying to do.
Gotcha. So, it's kind of the question of like, what is the placenta to begin with? It is an organ that actually the baby grows, and it grows in the wall of the mom's uterus. And it's a filter, yes, but there's actually no toxins found in the placenta. There's been 2 studies done on placentas, not encapsulation, but 2 studies done on placentas themselves to research of what's inside of them. And there's trace hormones, 15 different trace hormones. There's iron levels. There's certain supplements that the body has taken that the placenta has taken from the mom's body and feeds to the fetus. So we look at this placenta and it's growing inside this woman for 9 months, taking her iron supplements, taking like vitamins from her to grow this baby, and the 15 trace hormones. When it's dehydrated and then ground up into capsules for the woman to take over 6 weeks, it can help level out her hormones as well as treat the what they call the hot flashes and the night sweats that a lot of women have after giving birth.
Well, that's pretty interesting. So I guess that kind of leads into like the next question then, which you kind of sort of already hinted at, which is what are the benefits of encapsulating the placenta?
So some of the benefits include helping the benefit of milk production, because there are the certain hormones in the placentas that help with that. That also helps with treating hot flashes and night sweats. That's the biggest feedback that I get from my clients, that it helps treat. Some women will have suicidal thoughts or racing thoughts or very negative thoughts towards themselves or their children or others. And by taking the placenta encapsulation pills, that can help with that. I did have one friend, my friend is the father, his wife was having racing thoughts. And like suicidal thoughts after giving birth, and they had saved their placenta, put in the freezer. So they immediately encapsulated. She started taking the pills, and all of that went away. And they did that. They saved it purposely because she was having suicidal thoughts after the first baby.
Oh, wow. I wish more stories like that was told. I could only imagine, sometimes women feel like, oh, I'm the only one who feel this way, or I'm the only one who goes through this experience. And that's not true. It's probably the furthest thing from the truth. So
it's definitely not true. That. Yeah. I'm trying to think what else it benefits: milk production, hot flashes, mood. Iron levels. That's the other one. It helps with iron levels. So 1/4 of a woman's daily iron intake is found in her placenta. So it is good to take that iron back in.
Okay, that's actually pretty neato. That way you don't have to worry about taking like iron pills, because you're kind of getting it within yourself.
Yes.
I like that one. So I have to ask, because I think sometimes people think doulas are like sometimes against doctors, and I don't think that's true. I think we're more just trying to work hand in hand and make sure that what we do is also respected.
Yes.
That being said, do you see any practitioners kind of taking encapsulation seriously, or is it still kind of considered like this old wives' tale, like this holistic approach, but not really like, backed.
So I definitely see more midwives are very pro encapsulation. Doctors, I haven't yet come across a doctor who was like, yes, encapsulation works. But I have come across 2 doctors who actually work at the same hospital. I found interesting. They said, if you believe something is working, then it's going to work. That's the placebo effect. And I thought that was a really good point of view. And one of the doctors who said this, he's the head of OB, head of obstetrics at the hospital. And I was like, that's a great way to look at it. Because it's true. Like, as doulas, this is something we do a lot in our birth. Like, imagine yourself opening like a blossoming flower, and your cervix will open. We teach our clients to kind of mentally prepare for birth, for labor, for parenthood. And it's the same with the placenta encapsulation. If you believe it's working, it's going to work.
It's going to work.
If you don't think this is going to help your hot flashes, well, guess what? It's not going to help your hot flashes.
That's actually a cool way of thinking about it too. I mean, I don't know personally if it works, because I have not taken these pills, but it just seems like there's so many different people who, swears up and down that it works for them or work for someone they know. So, I mean, at this point, it's like, why not try it if so many people have like gotten something from it? So, I mean, we know the benefits from having your placenta encapsulated. So I got to kind of ask the opposite from that one, which is, what are the reasons why a woman couldn't get her placenta encapsulated?
That's a really good question. There's definitely still, I feel like, pushback at certain hospitals when I go. They're like, oh, no, you can't. There's meconium. Well, no. If there's meconium, which is when a baby poops in utero during the labor, I can just wash that off. Okay. In fact, I cut the sac off. I don't even give that part to the client.
Thank you for explaining what meconium is. That was about to be the next question.
Meconium is poop. It's also known as mech, is what I hear a lot of nurses and doctors and midwives call it. But choreo is specifically the diagnosis you don't want to hear in labor, because that's when I know I can't even take it with me, the placenta. Forget about encapsulating it. And I could be wrong about this, but what I understand choreo diagnosis is mom has a fever and baby has a fever at the time of birth. Because quite often fevers happen in women when they're in labor. Quite often is treated with Tylenol and or antibiotics to lower that fever. And baby isn't always born with a fever if mom had it and if it's under control. If baby is born with a fever, this is definitely where we're leading towards the diagnosis of choreo. And then the medical staff will want to send the placenta to the labs to get tested. So that's the big one. If a woman is GBS positive, which is group B strep, if she's positive at her 36-week swab, then she will need to get 2 rounds of antibiotics, at least here in New Orleans where I practice. The medical staff like it when the laboring woman can get 2 rounds of antibiotics before pushing. And what that does is actually clears the placenta out of the GBS. So it is safe to consume. Now, I know there was a case over 10 years ago in the northern part of the country. I don't know if it was Idaho, Wisconsin, Michigan, like up north, one of those northern states. A baby died because there was GBS positive in the baby's system weeks after birth. And after discovering the woman had encapsulated, there was GBS found in the capsules. So because of this article, it's been very prevalent with medical staff and doctors. Their nurses like, no, GBS, you can't take it. You can't encapsulate it. Well, if you read the rest of that article, the person practicing did not dehydrate the placenta at the right food safe temperatures. 2, the woman in labor did not have antibiotics while she was in labor. So whether they knew GBS was positive or not, she didn't receive the antibiotics, and the placenta was not steamed, nor was it dehydrated at the proper temperature to kill off that kind of bacteria. So for my clients, when there's GBS positive, when they are GBS positive, I will ask, did you get the 2 rounds of antibiotics? And if they didn't, then I will steam the placenta first, boil it in hot water, obviously. And then I will dehydrate it at food safe temperatures, which is 160 degrees. And I do it for, my training says like 16 to 18 hours. I typically do it for 20 to 24 just because of time. Time wise, it's just easier to plan something 20 hours later, or 24 hours later versus 18 hours later.
I mean, that, and I think also, I mean, 24 hours is easier to remember, but also just like, I want to make sure whatever, if it's something that's not so great in there, I want to make sure that by the time you get it, it is super cooked. It is cooked completely.
Yes, absolutely.
It's cooked all the way through.
Trying to think if there's any other reasons why a woman can't get her placenta encapsulated. Okay. So here's a basic one. If it's not properly put on ice in a timely manner.
Yes.
Right. So in a hospital setting, you need to have a cooler, whether it's a foldable, collapsible cooler or like a hard cooler. You need to have a cooler. And you need to have ice. Most hospitals do have a nourishment station where you can get ice and water for the laboring woman and yourself. And I will fill up a Ziploc bag of ice for the placenta to go on. And as soon as the nurse is like, hey, here's the tub with the placenta, you can have it, I already have a bag of ice for it to go on immediately. If you don't have a doula, or if it's someone else's responsibility to put this placenta on ice, it needs to be done very quickly. It's just like at home cooking. You don't take chicken out, leave it on the counter to defrost all day, all night, and then you cook it the next day. No, you're making sure it goes from thawed cold to the cooking pan. And it's the same concept with the placenta. It needs to be put on ice fairly quickly once it's put in the tub.
And it all makes sense. And thank you for that. And just going more into detail, because I appreciate it. It could be, you don't want to, I always want to make sure that everybody understands everything thoroughly, because this is something that I'm actually in the process of learning right now, which I'm very excited about. So
you say you're learning, you're like getting trained to encapsulate placentas?
Yeah, I'm actually taking my courses now. Also
Nice.
through Best Doula training. Go ahead, shout out that real quickly.
I am also trained through Best Doula, and I love it. I love my trainer and the mentorship, because it's not like you get certified and then you're done. Like if I have questions or if I have a weird looking placenta, I can post in the Facebook group, be like, hey, has anyone else seen this? It's really, really good and helpful.
Just by the way, quick sidebar, like I'm so thankful for it, because I feel like when I first was going through my training, it was just like such a thrown to the wolves type of situation. And I was just like, okay, I am treading water here, but there is nothing coming up. And I actually wrote in a group. That's actually how I met Karelle. I wrote in a group. I'm just like, hey, I'm just looking for some help, some guidance here. Like, I don't know what to do. And she like reached out to me, then we met up and we just like chopped it up and we ate muffins and it was great. And I was like, I love this woman. She has great purple hair and I love anyone with purple anything. So I was like, okay, I like her. And she kind of just like has shown me some steps to like be a little bit more aware of my training. And she's given me books, y'all. Like, I'm so thankful. So yay, Karelle. Karelle's awesome.
I do love to help mentor other doulas. I feel I was a nanny before I was a doula, and there really wasn't much mentorship. You kind of have to learn from the mothers who are training you to raise their children. And from that, I saw a lot of women with postpartum depression, with struggles, looking to me for advice. How do we do this? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm raising the kid how you want to raise the kid. And, now that I've gotten doula certification, I realized they actually needed a postpartum doula, someone who could talk to them and tell them, this is why your breasts feel this way. This is why the baby's not latching. This is called a yeast infection. This is not just a diaper rash, and I definitely feel like with the type of doula certification I have with Best Doula, there's the mentorship, and not only is there the mentorship, but other doulas are letting me know, hey, this isn't part of our job description. We need to refer out to this or refer out to that. And that is very helpful because I didn't have that as a nanny. And without my doula certification, I wouldn't have known. Like, it's important to have these resources and to recognize what's your job description and what's not in your job description, because you're not helping people if you're stepping out of bounds of your own job.
Right. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I think it's helpful to have guidelines and just to have boundaries in place.
Mm-hmm.
Because without those boundaries, and it's just like you're kind of at their beck and call. And I know I'm a very nice person, so I have a very hard time with saying, no, I'm not really supposed to do this. So when it's kind of laid out there, that boundary is already in place, so you don't have to worry about it as much.
Yep. It's true. It's absolutely true.
So let's see. What are other ways to digest, or should I say ingest, the placenta?
Different ways you can ingest the placenta. I know other doulas will grind up the powder and like make chocolates, which is something I would like to do.
I wonder how that would taste. Huh.
So from what I've read online, is it just tastes, typically you do dark chocolate, so you don't taste the iron, because usually dark chocolate has things mixed into it. When you go to like Whole Foods or Trader Joe's, they have fancy dark chocolates. I'm not a baker, so this is why I haven't really like tried too hard. My husband is the baker, and my husband doesn't like blood or placentas. But I this is what I'm really like personally really interested in for myself, not to like do for other people, because that's like a whole different type of like food handling certification I would need.
Right.
But I know people have done chocolates. I know even like Hilary Duff, the actress, she's talked about doing like a smoothie in the labor room. I personally don't like this method, just because usually you're like cutting it up, putting it in a smoothie and drinking it all right then and there. And I like the concept more of like taking it over a couple of weeks, a little bit of your placenta, because it took months to grow it and build up all these hormones in it. So why would you take it immediately? Like, I feel like it is better for the body to take it over a couple of weeks. Let's see, smoothie. I do know people who've actually chopped it up. Don't know people. I've read about people who have chopped it up and put it into ice cubes. And so then they've made it into smoothies, like a couple over a couple weeks. I like that method.
Sense.
Yeah, I think I like that more than all at once.
Would they have to like put that in like a separate cooler? Like how would they store that? Going back to the food safety issue, like you couldn't put that with other items.
No, so you would want to, what, thinking about it, I did have a client. That's what that was in her freezer. She had it frozen in frozen cubes. I remember that now. She froze them and then just had them in a double Ziploc bag in her freezer. So I don't know if her doula did that, if she did that, if her midwife did that. But there was definitely a bag of placenta cubes now that I'm thinking in her freezer. Sorry, I'm trying not to be a little grossed out about it. As much as I love placentas, I'm not into cooking with raw food. I'm the person who wears gloves to cut raw chicken.
Oh, wow. Really?
I am. And I always have been. I actually didn't cook red meat until I met my husband, because I was like, no, there's blood. This isn't supposed to be in my kitchen. This is supposed to be in the hospital.
Oh my God, that is so ironic. That's so crazy.
Yes. But yes, this woman had, I would assume somebody very early on after getting the placenta, cut it up and put it into cubes, and they were frozen. It only takes meat like 24 hours in the freezer to harden. And then you can pop it out of the ice cube tray, put it in a Ziploc bag to store. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yep. I think there's smoothies. I'm actually not sure if there's any other ways to ingest it. I know some people will use some of the placenta powder and like make jewelry with it for women who've had losses.
Oh.
Yeah. You can like have some of mom's breast milk and like freeze it or get, have the milk to harden. And then they make like flowers with the breast milk and the placenta powder.
That's actually real beautiful. Wow.
It is. The videos themselves are really cool. And I'm an artist and I think that's neat, but I don't have the time patience for that.
I can imagine. I mean, well, I always say this word wrong. So if I say it wrong, please correct me, but like tinctures, right?
Tinctures.
Right. Like what exactly, I mean, cause you can like ingest that though, right?
You can, yes, you're right. Actually, I make those and I forgot about those.
It's okay.
I'm gonna lie. So a tincture, what I use is 100% proof alcohol. Right now we're using vodka just because it's easier to find, but we
Right.
used to before January of 2022, we were using whiskey, 100% whiskey, 100% proof whiskey. And you put about an inch size of placenta in a jar with this alcohol, and you'd let it cure for 6 weeks in a dark cabinet. Now, this is not a dark cabinet next to your oven. You want this to be in your bathroom or bedroom, something that's not going to have heat on it, a dark, cool space. And it doesn't need to be in your fridge because that has light and it's too cold. And then you can strain it with a coffee strainer into an eyedropper. And this is something I actually do provide for my clients. I give them a mother jar with 8 ounces of alcohol and some of their placenta in it, and then a 4-ounce eyedropper. So they have the opportunity to refill the eyedropper twice.
Nice.
And this can be really good to use after your capsules are completed, after you've taken them all. Say you're breastfeeding or like weaning from breastfeeding 8 months down the road, or you're having a bad day, or maybe even a death in the family, and you need a little pick me up, and you can put some of the placenta tincture drops under your tongue. My instructions say not to do more than 10 drops a day. But you don't have to do up to 10.
I forgot to ask this question. And if you don't feel comfortable, we don't have to do this one either. But I guess the difference between wet preparation and dry preparation.
Oh, like raw or steamed?
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely, that's a great question. A lot of people misunderstand that. We actually used to offer that option. Do you want raw prep or steamed prep on the website? And everyone was selecting steamed. And I'm like, why are y'all doing this? One, it shrinks your size of your placenta. Like I see the placenta in the pot boiling and shrinking in size. So you're going to obviously get less capsules if we do it that way. Also, it smells awful. And to all the placenta encapsulators out there, they're laughing and nodding their head yes. It's not a lovely smell. It's definitely something you would want to do with like open windows up and doors.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And I'm not even going to describe it. It's just, trust me. So steamed is exactly what it sounds like. We steam the placenta, dry it off, cut it up, put it in the dehydrator and dehydrate it for 18 to 20 hours. The raw preparation is I just don't steam it. I wash it off, I pat it dry with blood, cut it up, put it in the dehydrator. And the difference is that steaming it first will kill some bacteria, like more bacteria than what the dehydrator will. But by steaming it, it will shrink it. It will make it smaller. I remember I had to steam one, and this was a giant placenta. It was so big, and I was like, this is definitely going to make 200 capsules. Because I'd done one like the day before, similar size, and it was just so big, and I had to fill 2 bottles of capsules. It was so big.
Wow.
I steamed it, dehydrated it, and it was like 150. It was just your very average size amount of capsules. And I was like, what? And I realized that's what was going on. The steaming really does shrink it back to size, shrink it smaller so much. But I don't love doing it. We've actually taken it off the website. And I think the website says if you're GBS positive or if you have concerns about GBS, to contact us, the website, when it's time to pick up your placenta so we can talk about it.
Gotcha. Well, only if necessary then, I guess.
Yes. There's things you could do with mother broth. I don't know how to do that, but that's the broth that bubbles to the top when you steam the placenta. Again, it doesn't smell great, so I don't do anything with that. I know my trainer could give more details about that, things that she's done in the past. I don't even know if she does it anymore.
I can imagine the stories you have.
No.
No. Speaking of, is there any cool things about the placenta that you could tell us?
Oh man. So, yes. I keep count of all the placentas I do. One, I think it's really cool to pay my mortgage on encapsulating placentas.
I think that's amazing.
But also, um, most recently since 2020, we've had COVID going around. People pregnant have had COVID and they've given birth, and I see their placentas. And before 2020, I would say it had done maybe 30. It's actually gone up in numbers a lot since 2020. But placentas were just placentas. They were nice thick slabs of steak. I cut them, I clean them, I cook them. Now, if I can tell if a woman has had COVID during her pregnancy, because the placentas are not thick and they're not evenly thick all the way through. One side might be thick, the other side will be kind of thin. And that is a midwife, a home birth, actually. She pointed it out to me. And I was like, oh, is that what I'm seeing? So now when I process placentas and I see one that's uneven, when I return the capsules back to the clients, I will ask, like, hey, did she have COVID during her pregnancy? And so far, I haven't been wrong. When I suspect COVID was during the pregnancy, people are like, yeah, she did actually.
Wow.
Which I think is really interesting. I do. I think it's really, really interesting. Trying to think what else I've seen. Oh, I saw a twin placenta about 2 weeks ago, my first one. So the twin placenta. So there's 3 different ways you can have twins, like as far as the placenta goes. You could have 2 totally different placentas with 2 sacs, obviously, and 2 babies. You can have 1 placenta and 2 sacs on that 1 placenta. And then you can have 1 placenta and 1 sac. And the one that I saw was 1 placenta. You look on the mother's side, the side that's attached to the uterus, and it just looks like 1 placenta, nice and healthy. There's no indication that when you flip it over to baby side, there's 2 obviously different sacs, amniotic sacs. And it was just, I knew it was coming. I knew the doula was working with a twin mom who wanted to encapsulate. And I was like, I need this in my life. I need to see a twin placenta. It's the week I'm moving. It's going to be stressful. And this is going to bring all the joy into my week. And it did. Did not disappoint. It was gorgeous. It was a very healthy placenta, very nice and thick, no calcification. And the sacs were just intact. So I was able to pull the sacs up from the placenta itself and look at how big the sacs were and the different sizes the babies possibly were. One sac was definitely larger than the other sac. And there's 2 umbilical cords coming out of this placenta. It was just very, very neat.
That just sounds so awesome.
Oh yeah. Something else I can tell when I get placentas is I can see when someone has had a C-section, because there's a very high volume of blood in the bucket. I can tell when someone has delayed cord clamped. And I can also tell when someone has delayed cord clamped with a midwife. And maybe that's just the midwives here at the 2 hospitals that I work with in the home birth midwife. But they will delay cord clamping until that placenta is bone dry. There's
Which
barely
is what we want.
Right. This is kind of like every mother's goal. Sometimes we don't get it because of medical reasons, and that's okay. But yes, there will be absolutely no blood, to the point I remember there was there was a home birth placenta, and there was very, very little blood, and I couldn't get enough blood to do a print. That's how dry it was. I had to get the blood out of the cord, the umbilical cord, and mix it with some water to thin it out, just to get enough blood on this placenta to make a print.
Oh wow.
But this is very normal from this midwife, from her home birth placentas that I get. They're so super dry. And when there's delayed cord clamping, it'll still be fairly dry when I see one from an OB. But I still have to use paper towels and pat it dry and get the blood out of the veins. With a C-section, I didn't really notice it till one day. I did one day that was a C-section, and the one next day was a lot less blood. And I'm like, why? What's the difference?
Mm-hmm.
And I asked the mom when I returned, I'm like, how was your birth? You know, and like some people are like, oh, lovely. And other people are like, it wasn't that great. And, you know, some people give you details, some won't. And the first woman, she's like, well, after so many hours, you know, we did have a failure to progress. And so I had a C-section. And then the next day when I returned the second placenta, I was like, how was your birth? And they're like, oh, we got everything we wanted, including delayed cord clamping. And it's like, so this is how I get my answers from people about like what's up with their placenta. And that's when it clicked. These placentas that are like heavy blood amounts in the bucket, these are cesarean births. Because even with the vaginal birth, there still wouldn't be that much blood in the bucket, because the nurse typically either picks up the placenta and put it into my tub, or they have to drain the blood. There's a bowl that the placenta is birthed into. They have to put that excess blood back in the bag to see how many cc's of blood the mother lost during the birth. So even then, when the nurse transfers the placenta from the bowl it's birthed into the essentially like Tupperware container I take it home in, there's not that much blood in it. But that took me a while to figure out like what's with these like essentially like crime scene placentas I'm dealing with. and that's what it was. These are cesarean placentas. Like, oh, okay. Yeah. I'm trying to think of anything else I can tell. I can tell when there's a lot of calcification, like how old a placenta is, and not necessarily like exactly, oh, this is a 40 or 41 week placenta, but I can tell like when a placenta has like reached its life limit.
Right.
Calcification is exactly what it sounds like the tissue is starting to calcify. So it looks like and feels like sand in the meat of the placenta on the mother side. And I actually had one recently. I want to say it was this week. It's like, you know, you walk onto the boardwalk and like shake your clothes off and there's like a puddle of sand underneath you.
Yeah.
That's what this placenta looked like. And I messaged the mom because I've seen it once before, and the client had severe HG, which is hypergardiomesis. I cannot pronounce the word. Hypermesis. It's also known as HG. It's when you like can't keep food down.
Yeah.
And you vomit everything. Last year, I had a client with HG, and she pretty much lived off of Tums most of her pregnancy. Her placenta was just excessive amounts of calcification. And the one I had this week, it's kind of close to that, like very similar looking, similar feeling. And so I reached out to the mom, like, how was your pregnancy? Did you have any health conditions? And she's like, no, I did have IGUR, IGUR. I don't know what that acronym stands for, but I know it's like, it has to do with gestational issues.
Okay.
She's like, I got that diagnosed in my third trimester. So I primarily lived off of Tums my third trimester. I was like, oh, here we go. I'm connecting the dots. So it's things like that. I just find it very interesting.
Yeah. I just wonder, like, what does that mean? You said IGER?
IGUR. Yeah.
Oh, IGUR.
Yeah. Eager.
I wonder, because that is interesting.
I know we learned about it in our doula training. I haven't come across
intrauterine growth restriction.
There you go.
There you go. So we're going to figure this out. Like, we're going to get this.
Why that caused her to be so nauseous that she, primarily lived off Tums. I just find it interesting. The things that I see.
There were like more studies on this, because then we would know how to handle these situations like a little bit better. Mm-hmm. At this point, we kind of have to like learn from other people's experiences and kind of rope it together to go, oh, well, this happened to this woman and this happened to this person. So it's just interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
But thank you so much for giving me your time.
You're welcome.
And explaining and giving us so many different stories. And is there any way how someone could reach you if they want to ask you any question? If not, it's okay.
Oh, I hadn't even thought of that.
They may want you as their doula.
Yes, if you're locally in New Orleans, the greater New Orleans area, you can find me through nolanesting.com. I guess to contact me directly, my contact information is on the website
There we
under my
go.
bio. Yeah.
Yep. Yep, you can find her and you can find me because we both worked through NOLA nesting. So there you go.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Karelle. I appreciate everything.
You're welcome. Nice to talk to you.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.